Hey guys, it is time to finally talk about the best reads of 2024. Hey guys, if you are new here, welcome to the Book Path. I'm Nicole, and if this isn't your first rodeo, thanks for sticking around. This video and probably the next one, long overdue. These should have gone up like 2-3 weeks ago. If you've been following my channel, you know we've had some snow days, you know we've had some school vacations. Let's just add into there some people getting sick in the household, fevers, flus, all the fun stuff, and just we're not able to get in here and talk to you guys. But everything is on the mend. People are on the mend, so things are getting better. We did have another snow day. I think majority of this week has been canceled at school because a small dusting of snow here and everything shuts down. But that is what happens in states where they're not used to snow. It always makes me and the hubby chuckle a little bit because we have grown up and lived in places where there were massive amounts of snow. So we always find it funny that, you know, there's light dusting and everything shuts down. But then again, they're not really, you know, set up to handle it. You know, there's not really snow plows and salting and the pre-care that a lot of states up in the Northeast New England area do. So it is what it is. I'm actually happy that we've gotten a few snow days. Like I said, had a little one that was sick with a fever and flu-like symptoms, and he's just getting over it now. So it's nice to not have to call in sick and get those doctor's notes because it's snow day. So it's already provided for him. And then of course, recently, a few days back, actually I want to say like 2 days ago, the hubby also started coming down with the symptoms and a fever. So fortunately enough, me and the other kiddo are staying healthy. We've got like a few cold symptoms, a little runny nose here and there, but for the most part, we're good. So hopefully it stays that way and we can just continue on and the other two will, you know, pull through really good. So that's kind of what's been going on here, but I've been wanting to get my best of 2024 out and my worst of 2024 out, which will probably come out in another point. Now that time has come around, we are going to have to be filming some other videos. So same outfit, multiple videos coming up, giving you warning now. I'm not going to go into too much on these books because I've covered them in other videos. I'm just going to give a few points on each. They are in no particular order. I think they're just like, if there is an order, it's maybe the order I read them throughout 2024. But once again, not a big, huge, you know, distinction between these. I loved them all. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get down to it. So up first, we have one that I have made reference to a few times with the Cocky Hero Book Club, and that is Cocky Bastard by Penelope Ward and V. Keelan. This one, I loved it because it made me laugh. The circumstances, meeting on a drive, having to drive across country, finding a fainting goat or a goat as it were that you're trying to rescue, the antics that happen, the second chance romance that happens a little bit later through the book, and just Chance is great. I love him as a male lead. I thought he was great. I thought Aubrey was great. I just loved their relationship dynamics in there. And I love the fact that they have been making continuous appearances in other books in the Cocky Hero series. It just shows that I'm not alone in thinking that this was just a great, great book. But like I said, funny jokes, steamy romance, a goat. If you get it, you'll get it. It's fun. It's great. But yeah, this was a 5-star read for me. Highly recommend it. It was one of the better ones, if not my favorite one out of the entire Cocky Hero series so far. There's been some other 5-star reads, but this one, just everything it was, everything it needed to be. So next up, we have Vengeful Gods by Elliot Rose. I was fortunate enough to get an arc of this. I think it was back in January, February area because it came out, I think, in February of 2024. This was kind of your dark, twisted, more taboo romance. Definitely check for trigger warnings if that is something that you need to check for when you're reading books. There are a lot. I loved this. I loved this book. I was a little worried I wasn't going to, because I think this, up until that point, this was like kind of the darkest romance I've kind of read, but it all made sense. And basically you have this world where there's an upper echelon, and they may or may not be involved in trafficking of sorts. I don't know if I can say that. We're going to see. I mean, I'm not monetized, so I can probably get away with saying a little bit more. But either way, there are some elements, some crime elements to this book that aren't the greatest. There's some abuse situations to children that are not the greatest. So like I said, definitely check trigger warnings. However, you have the main female character she was a daughter of one of these upper echelons. She had gotten out of the society, was trying to live her own life, gets dragged in by these three guys that basically take her. And they're trying to use her as leverage, and along the way they find out that not all is what it seems. She's not part of this element that they've been trying to get rid of. And romance kind of ensues. And to make it even more interesting is, while they all have feelings for her, these three men also have feelings for each other. It is a FMMM or an MMMF, however you want to spin it, yes, but it works for them. The way that their relationship dynamics, how they seem to complement and contrast each other, what their steamy little preferences seem to be, they fit one another, and they fit how they express just kind of their romance and thoughts on love in general. It all just fit really well to where, it's one of those we listen and we don't judge moments, because it fit for, when you have these people that have gone through the tragedies and traumas and things that they've gone through at very young ages. Relationships for them aren't going to probably look the same as they are for everybody who maybe didn't have to go through that, who had a much more, quote unquote cookie cutter kind of like life growing up. So when you take that into account, the way that they kind of manifest their love or show their love, exhibit their love, it makes sense for them. And that was one of the things that I really, really, really loved about this book. I know that that Elliot Rose has been writing, she wrote like a novella for, it's going to be its different kind of thing. I don't know if it's a duology or if it's going to be a series, but it's going to exist in this same world. Noir Moon was a novella that I had read recently. That was kind of the precursor for another book that's coming out with a similar type of story and romance trope in it, that I think is coming out in June. So I am waiting for that to come out, because I really did love this world. And even though it is a very dark, trigger-filled story and romance, it made sense. It worked for me. I loved it. I loved the characters in it. I loved the emotional, attachments that they formed to one another, the romance that they formed with one another. Even though it wasn't something that you would normally see like in an everyday romance, like I said, it made sense for them, and it, held me in, kept me going, whichever you want to go. But that one was 5 stars, and I know I read that one back in February, so I do highly recommend that you pick that one up as well. Just like I said, check the trigger warnings if that's something that you need to work with. I don't have an issue with trigger warnings. In fact, the more trigger warnings I see, the more curious I want to know, because I just work that way. So moving on, was another book in the Cocky Hero series. And now, while I don't usually, when I have book series, I usually will just pick one book out of the series, because I don't want like a whole book series to take over like my top 10 or my worst 10 or whatever it is like that. But since the Cocky Hero book club is kind of like its own thing, and there's different books in the world, and they don't always have the same characters or anything like that. They're kind of like standalones that just got grouped together in some cases. So that's why I can pick another one of theirs. But usually I won't do that. And so for this one, I had picked up Stuck Up Suit by Penelope Ward and V. Keeland. This one was great. We have seen these characters make a few appearances again, including some of their side characters, which then had their own book. So maybe it's like a mini series within a series. But I liked the reality of this story. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. You had the two main characters. You had this kind of like the sass and the wit going back and forth, which I loved. But you also had a realness to the stories, which is kind of what I'm liking about the cocky heroes. Some of them are just like, this would never happen in real life, but some of them have elements of realness to them. And this one was what to do when you're having a romance and you're falling in love, and then you find out, both of you find out, that there might have been a child from a previous relationship. And what do you do then, especially when the mother of that previous relationship might want to rekindle flames? And how do you work with that as a guy? Do you, ditch the girl you're currently with to try to make it work because now you have a kid with this other person? Or do you try to make it work as, co-parenting and move on with your lives in that relationship? So I really did kind of like that aspect of this one. Had its steam, not a whole bunch of steam, but it did have some steam to it. I did really like I said, once again, the relationship dynamics and the realness of like the situations that they were put in. So recommend that one. Number 4 up for us was once again another cocky hero club pick. This is the last one, I swear. And this was Mr. Moneybags, and this was also by Penelope Ward and B. Keelan. These were kind of like the first 5 canon, and I really just kind of fell in love with these stories. This one, you had a lot of enemies to lovers. You had a case of mistaken identity, and you also had that really interesting trope that doesn't come up that often, which is what to do if you find out you may be related to the person you're falling for. That was just kind of a blown away thing. But the way that it worked for them was actually really kind of cute and sweet and tugging on your heartstrings. So yeah, it definitely had some interesting throw-ins and problems that arose. But it was very interesting. It also involved like a lot of kind of generational occurrences and things that you could see were affecting the next generations down, which I thought was interesting. We always think that we can do something and it's never really going to affect, and then lo and behold, it does. Sometimes it does affect what you do. So I thought that was really interesting, and I really loved it. And all 3 of the guys with Cocky Bastard, Stuck Up Suit, Mr. Moneybags, they were some of my favorite cocky hero male leads so far out of the books that I've read. So now that we have kind of done a lot of the ebooks I had been reading for the year, we do have a few physical copies of books that were up there for the 5-star reads. And for that, we have A Feather So Black by Lyra Celine, or Lyra Celine. I am so sorry if I botched the name. This one, from the first few pages, had me emotionally clinging to the female heroine, Fia, in this. I was gut-wrenched for her and the things that she was going through, and she just right away made me emotionally just with her. I didn't care anything else. I just wanted her to get a happy ending. I wanted her to get all the things she dreamed of, because just what she was going through was just tugging at my heartstrings in every single way. You basically have Fia, who's kind of like this changeling that's been taken in by a queen, and the other princess has actually been taken into the Fey world, and so years have gone by. Fia is now older. She is being sent in with kind of her childhood romance. There was a falling out. It gets covered in the book, and he is actually supposed to go and save the princess, bring her back to the kingdom, and marry her. So now he has to go and do that, and Fia is tasked to go along with him. So she kind of has to watch this man that she loves go and try to win her half sister, her this other girl that. So it was just gut wrenching on so many levels. You find out there's a lot of elements of the Swan Princess in here, which I loved because I was a huge cartoon Swan Princess fan. I grew up watching that, loved it. And a lot of dark twists and turns, and this is one of those darker Fey world kingdoms. But it was fantastic, and I loved it, and I loved the little spirits of the house that she kind of starts to talk to. There's one that has a little bit of attitude that I loved. And then just, like I said, it's got a love triangle, love square. It just gets all sorts of interesting dynamics there, but really, really well done. It was 5 stars for me. Highly recommend. So next up was Dark Restraint by Katie Robert. This is one of the books in the Dark Olympus series, which I love, which is kind of like a modern day Greek mythology, like the god pantheon, like the pantheon of the gods and the goddesses, set to kind of like almost like a mafia style city. So it's very, very interesting. I love the romantic elements in here. Very spicy books, very spicy books. And in this one, we basically have the story of Ariadne and the Minotaur. And we have met them a few times in other previous books, but this is their actual story. And I'm not gonna lie, the Minotaur, I fell in love with him. He is great. And their relationship, like, she's this very shy kind of girl who's trying to come into her own. She's never really wanted to disappoint people, but now she's kind of have to find her way. She's been used as a pawn her whole life. She's continuing to be used as a pawn, and she thinks the Minotaur is just using her as well. She doesn't know what to feel about him. Meanwhile, the Minotaur has been in love with Ariadne since childhood. And it's just, how is he going to prove that to her? How does he help her to see that he's not the monster that her father raised him to be? So it was just all kinds of wonderful. It was, some action packed in here, some little subterfuge. I don't even know if I can say that word right. Subterfuge or espionage, if you will. But it was really well done, once again, for the story, which was funny because in previous books, when you brought out the Minotaur, I did not like him. And so when I got to this book, I was worried about how I was going to feel. And honestly, he is like one of my favorites, and I love him. And he is like in my top 10 or, whatever, of book boyfriends, because I really did love him. So 5 stars on this. Highly recommend. So next up, we are going to take up a little bit of a very short classic, and that was The Ghost and Mrs. Muir by Aria Dick. This is the book that the movie, and then there was a small television series based off of this. It's wholesome, it's sweet, it's cute. It also has a lot more to like kind of think and process with some of the discussions and dialogue that go on. But basically you have this widow who, she just wants a bit of freedom and fresh air and to get away from her in-laws. So she gets this little seaside cottage at a huge discount because rumors say that it is haunted. And so she moves in there, and yes, she meets the ghost of the sea captain who actually built the cottage. And as much as he wants his cottage to be left alone because his will was not followed, she, sticks it back to him, and she's like, no, I'm not going to leave. And so they just kind of have these dialogues, and they come to each other's aid, and a romance kind of blossoms between them, even though he is a ghost and she is a human. And it's not like in some crazy fantasy way. It's just kind of those feelings, and they know nothing will ever really come of it. It's not a spicy book at all, but it's just that camaraderie, that friendship, that longing, and just that love that kind of happens. It has a wonderful, just beautiful kind of ending to it. It does talk about family dynamics, mothers and children. And just kind of the expectations of what was of a woman in society. This is different from the movie in the fact that this is kind of like, I want to say late 1800s, early 1900s, and I think the movie was done, actually flip that. The movie was the late 1800s to 1900s. The book is kind of like post-World War II, maybe even early 60s. So, different time variations, but it still worked. I had been a fan of the movie, which is why I picked up the book. Book was different, but great in its own way, and the movie is still fantastic. Neither one is really like worse than the other. They are kind of their own things, but still having that same foundational storyline through it. Highly recommend. It is not a long read at all, but it is just a beautiful, beautiful story. The movie, I don't know if they've colorized it yet. It was originally released in black and white, and it does star Rex Harrison from the original Dr. Dolittle and My Fair Lady. So he is the sea captain, and I think is it Gene Tierney who was If it is, I can't, I'm so sorry if I messed up the name, but beautiful, beautiful actress, and they just fit each other so well, and I can't recommend the book or the movie or the show enough, so definitely pick up. Next up is my favorite local author to me, and that is Lane O'Neill with her book Lady Luck. I had met her, wonderful person. We've stayed in touch. Not only did I read Lady Luck, but I did also read kind of the sequel to it, which is Miss Sunrise. I would totally put that one up here too if I could, but space was running limited, and obviously I already made my comment about series. But this was fantastic. It was 5 stars for me. Very light, mild spice, not too detailed, but what I love about this book is the sense of realness that you get in this relationship. Neither person is perfect, although I will say Vin and his whole family and his brother, even in the sequel, are like the most seemingly well-adjusted people on the planet, and they are wonderful in every sense of the way. And I love the Lot family. I love them. I love them. I love them. But in this story, you had Bree, who's kind of grown up in the casino area, in kind of like the I don't want to say the bayou area, but kind of in like that Gulf area. And she's grown up in the casino lifestyle with a grandmother who doesn't always treat her right and has a lot of expectations for her. And she's just kind of floundering and trying to figure out what she wants to do in life and how she wants to behave and act. Vin is the one where it's the he falls first scenario, and he has a lot of tragedy in his own life. He's come down there to help out at the family restaurant before maybe or maybe not going back to this other job that he has. And of course he meets Bree. He falls hard, fast, and it's just the story of them working their way into this relationship, and he is supportive and loving, and it was such a sense of realness to when you read all these romance books. And I tell you, like I said, there's the chances of meeting an elf, fae, prince, or some, shadow daddy or winged bat boy or whatever. Let's face it, that's probably not going to happen on this side of whatever realm we're living in. But stories like this, with the realness and the complications and the insecurities and the support systems, these ring true in this world. And I loved it. I loved just the calmness to it. It was just sweet and wholesome, and it just leaves you with just a wonderful feeling. Like, this is like all the good vibes and cuteness and sweetness that you get from like a Hallmark movie. Like, it really is. But not as like cliched, and I want to say that because I love the Hallmark movies, so whatever it is. But we all know that they kind of are cookie cutter and things like that, but they're still great. But this has those vibes, those feelings that you get from a Hallmark movie. You're going to get those with these books. Like I said, Miss Sunrise, I know she's having some other books come out in this kind of world that she's created, which is a fantastic world. Pick them up if you are just looking for something that feels real, something that has a very positive relationship goals. Pick this one up. It's fantastic. Highly recommend it. Miss Sunrise is the male Vin, his younger brother, and her best friend Cody. It's a male-male romance. Also wonderful, wholesome, just beautifully done. So highly recommend all these books. Check them out. And last up for this, it's weird because I read the book in December, so I read it in 2024. However, it's an art copy. It does not come out until February. I have done a coming soon video on this, which you guys can check out, and that is The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. This was really well done. This is kind of a bachelorette, once upon a time, I forget, a Bridgerton kind of mashup. Like, it is like all of those things. You have a fae queen that has taken over England basically as of like the 1400s. She's been ruling. She makes bargains with the people that always kind of seem to go awry and aren't the greatest of things. Well, they like them, but it's weird. But you now have a competition where it is the debut season for some of these girls, and they get an opportunity to compete for the Queen's Fae Son. And so there's that kind of competition aspect, hence Bachelorette style. But you also have this kind of underground grouping of a few individuals that don't really want the Queen to continue her reign. And they kind of take in the main female character, and there is kind of a love triangle that is going on. I know this is sounding really weird, but I'm trying not to give any details away, like I said. But, you know, fae, historical, fantasy, romance kind of trope for it. Lots of twists and turns. There is little spice, not hugely overdone, but loved it. I can't wait for the sequel. And now that, like, I know that this book's not even out, it comes out in February. I have a long wait, but definitely pick it up when it comes out in February. This was great. Like I said, fantasy, historical romance, Bridgerton vibes, Once Upon a Broken Heart vibes, Bachelorette style competition vibes, and the Fae, like the Fae kind of games and challenges in this are all kinds of messed up, but there's found family in here. Like I said, it was really, really great, and this would be my 10th pick for my best books. So it was 5 stars. Highly recommend when it comes out. So those were my top 10 for 2024. I had a blast reading each and every one of them. I don't know. Let me know if you have read any of them and what your thoughts were in the comments below. Let me know if any of them, after kind of hearing my randomness of blurbs about them, have struck your interest, and if so, which ones. But yeah, I know this video was long overdue. I just realized now that I never shut off my portable heater, so I apologize for the whirring in the background. But like I said, it has been snow, it has been icy, it is freezing in this room right now. I am bundled up, so I apologize for that once again. But I hope 2024 was a good reading year for you. I hope you achieved whatever goals you were trying to achieve, and that you had some really good and fantastic 5-star reads of your own. And with that, I hope you guys are doing well. Stay warm, stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.